Alright, I'm getting ready to print now. I'm going to print this outside because the medium that we're using to mix in with the powder is kind of smelly. This is a German glass. It's something that has texture on one side and it's smooth on the other side. You want to make sure that you're silk screening on the smooth side. You can't use regular window glass, it's a little too thin. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to go ahead and wash it off. It's a bad thing if you've got any fingerprints on this because there's oil in your fingertips, and when the silkscreen ink hits that, it's not going to adhere well to the glass. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off both sides, and you can usually tell, like I'm feeling this right now. So this is the side that has just a little bit of texture to it. So I go ahead and I clean that off. Now when we do the printing, the silkscreen mesh can't sit right on the glass. So I'm going to use these. These are just 3/8 inch foam core that I've cut into strips, and I'm going to lay them right on here. And then I'm going to take my screen and lay it on top so that when I use the squeegee and I push it down, it's going to force the screen into contact with the glass, and then it's going to pop back up. What I'm using for this is tracing black. It comes in the powder form. And then you mix it with the Rouchet squeegee oil, and as I said, this doesn't smell very good. Now this is going to be something that I've used quite a bit, so I've already got some in here. It's been sitting for a while. It takes a long time to dry, but when you've got it in here it will settle, so you want to make sure that it's good and mixed up. And ideally you want it to be about the consistency of honey. And this is kind of a, you can do it over a couple of times if you need to by just wiping it off, but I want to try and get this first shot if I can. This is fairly expensive stuff, so once I get this done, I'm going to scrape off as much of it as I can and put it back in here. So we're just going to put it across right here, and you want to make sure that you have plenty. Alright, so now I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm just going to come in here and firmly push down and drag it towards me, so I'm forcing the ink through the openings in the mesh. And then I'm going to clean off my squeegee. And let's see what we get. This is the moment of truth here, so I'm going to lift this off and I wind up with something that looks like that. Now you can see here that there's a little bit of a faint color of the black coming through that's just sort of a light gray. Depending on how thick you get the toner on your laser printer, sometimes that's going to happen a little bit. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put this in the kiln. I'm going to fire it up to 1250 degrees to get that to set on there permanently, and it will actually melt a little bit and become part of the glass. Alright, so this is the kiln that I've got. I've got about 15 inches that I can fit this in. So we're going to put that in just like so. Close it. And then I've got a timer here. So it's set to take an hour and a half to get up to temperature, and then it shuts off and it very gradually cools down over the course of about 3 or 4 hours. We don't want to have too much of a change in temperature because that's going to crack the glass. But once it comes out, it'll be permanent. I've already cleaned this off. I need to have this on a light box so that I can very carefully line up the second screen with what I've already got going on in here. So I'm going to lay this on top. I've made this just slightly bigger than the area that I want to print on so that it gives me a little bit of margin for error when I print this. So hopefully if I get this lined up just right, I won't get any gaps. Now the edges here are a little bit ragged, but that's okay because the black is going to cover that up. So we'll get this. Now if you make a mistake on this, you can take it off and do it over again. It's kind of a pain in the butt, and after a while the screen is going to start to clog up. So you want to try and get this first shot if you can. Okay, so that looks pretty good. For this I'm going to use brown umber for the color. Again, I'm going to mix it up real well. And then hopefully this is going to work. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to have to go in and paint this manually, and I'm not nearly as good with using a brush as I am with this more mechanical kind of silkscreen process. Alright, so let's go ahead and put that on there. And let's see what we get. Alright, so let's see what we get. Alright, that works out pretty well. That's what I was hoping for. It's important that you mix up enough of this that you can print the whole batch that you need to so that the colors are consistent throughout. If you put a little bit too much squeegee oil in it, it's going to be a little bit thinner and more transparent, and you don't want like one arm to be a little bit lighter than the face, for example. So make sure you have enough of this on hand to do everything that you want to do. I'll buy that. Okay, now on this one you can see that there's a few pinholes right here. You can block those out with tape or with a special kind of sort of a patch, or after you're done printing this, before it dries, you can just kind of wipe that off before you put it in the kiln.